Hey y'all, listen, I got some good news, and I know some of y'all already know it, but I don't think y'all really understand what this means, okay? Because after prayer today, when God spoke to me about this, I got super duper excited. Now listen, God said this: no weapon formed against you shall prosper. I'm gonna say it again. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. You can find that verse in Isaiah 54:17. Now get this. It says no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. That means whatever the enemy has pointed at you as a weapon, it ain't gonna work. So God spoke to me and said, so what does that tell you, Wilsonja? And I was sitting here thinking like, Then God said, no weapon formed against. He kept saying against. He had me to write it down and underline it. Against. And I said, against. And I said, oh! And when I caught it, when he revealed that mystery, when he revealed his secret to me, I said, oh! So no weapon formed against me shall prosper. So that means, God, that if I take that same weapon that the enemy pointed towards me and then turn it towards the kingdom of darkness, it will prosper. It will prosper. So whatever the enemy has sent towards you today as a weapon, whether it is fear, God said, turn it back around to the kingdom of darkness, not to your brother and sister now, because God said we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, okay? Okay? We wrestle against the enemy, not your brother and sister that look like you, that got flesh and stuff. No. God said to love them. Be good to them still. Pray for them, because they are under the influence of the enemy, whether they know it or whether they don't know it. They are under the influence of the enemy, and they have to be delivered by the same grace that delivered you. Y'all know we was a hot mess once upon a time, and some of us still is at times when we don't get connected and know God for ourselves. We'll be a hot mess. God said it's by his grace that we are saved through his faith, right? It ain't nothing that we've done. So God said his grace is sufficient. So don't wish bad. Don't hope bad. Don't pray for something bad. If you are, then you working witchcraft. If you praying and hoping that something happen bad to somebody, that's witchcraft, okay? That's a prayer of a miss. You over there working witchcraft. I don't care how you disguise it or whatnot. If you wishing and hoping to see somebody fall, then that's you in a space of witchcraft, okay? You don't want to do that. But I'm telling you what God said to do. He said, turn that weapon, whatever the weapon has been pointed at you today, whether it's the weapon of fear, the weapon of doubt, the weapon of anxiety, the weapon of sickness, the weapon of disease, the weapon of poverty, the weapon of adultery. You get what I'm saying? The weapon of fornication, the weapon of perversion, right? Whatever it is, the weapon of division in your marriage, separation, whatever the weapon is, God said, just now turn it back towards the enemy. And when you turn it and you fire back at the enemy, that weapon will work. Because God said the weapon against you can't work. If that weapon's pointed at you, it can't work. It won't work. God won't allow it. He will not allow it to work. But God said if you take that same weapon and point it at your adversary, which is the devil, God said the weapon will work. It will prosper. It will prosper. What the enemy wants to see happen to you, it will happen to him. Okay? That's why God says that he will deliver you out of trouble and the wicked will take your stand. Right? Isn't that what God said? And listen, God also said this in Psalms. This is how God confirms his word. In Psalms 34:21, God says this. Read it for yourself. Psalms 34:21, it says this: evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. Now God said evil shall slay the wicked. Now isn't the weapon that has been formed against you, isn't that evil? Huh? You can say yes, that's evil. So God is saying turn that evil back to the enemy and watch that evil slay the wicked. In the enemy's camp today, whatever plot, plan, agenda, assignment, mission, agency the enemy has released today, right? God said, release it back to the enemy. Send it back. to the kingdom of darkness with God's judgment attached. Now let me read to y'all. Y'all remember in the book of Numbers, I read that to y'all yesterday, Numbers 23 and 19. Was it yesterday or the day before? One of those. And Balaam was asked by Balak to put a curse on the children of Israel. Why? Because Balak, that king, he realized that God was walking and working with the children of Israel. And he realized how much they were conquering, right? They were getting ground. So he got intimidated. He got scared. He got fearful. So he said, I got to stop them before they get to me. So he called upon Balaam, the prophet. And he said, I need you to put a curse on the children of Israel. I need you to put a curse on the children of Israel. And so Balaam said, okay, let me go and seek, God about this. Now in Numbers 23:19, Balaam and God had already had a conversation. And this is what God has said to Balaam. God had said that he had already blessed the children of Israel. And then God said in verse 19, chapter 23, he said this, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. Hath he said it, shall not he do it? Had he spoke it, shall not he make it good? Then listen at this. In chapter 23 of Numbers, verse 20, listen at what Balaam tells Balak, okay? Hope y'all following me, and I hope I'm saying it right for y'all, okay? This is what Balaam tells Balak. This is what God has told Balaam to tell Balak. Balaam says this, behold, I have received commandment to bless. Who have Balaam received commandment by? God. Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he have blessed, and I cannot reverse it. Did y'all hear that? Cannot be reversed. Cannot be reversed. It cannot be reversed. See, some of y'all, the enemy will always try to use a weapon of fear, a weapon of anxiety, a weapon of having you worrying over there, because it'll look like that the enemy is going to undo what God joined together, or what God has put in your hands, or what God has called you to have. The enemy will make it seem as if you won't be able to keep it, that you won't be able to have it, that you won't be able to sustain it. But God said whatever he's blessed, it is what it is. And as Balaam said, he can't reverse it. What God put in place, no man can do it. Just as God told Israel, I will put you in my hands, and who is able to pluck you out of it? So when God blesses you, who's able to take the blessing away when God has given it to you? Huh? When God gives you a thing, whatever it is, a car, a house, your health, your marriage, your children, whatever God gives to you, it's a promise. It's a promise. And God said he is faithful to every promise. He said he's unfailing, that what he say, that his word will not return void. God said it will accomplish what he has sent it out to do. And it will prosper in the thing where he has sent it to. God said he ain't playing no games. When he decrees, it is so. That's what God tells us, that when we decree a thing, that it is indeed what established. Who are those that can decree? Who decrees that you know of? Kings. Who's the King of kings? Who's the King of all kings? God is. And God said when we decree, and when God said we decree, that means what we are speaking according to his will. That's what God says what? If you ask, if you pray anything according to my will, then God said he will hear us. And God said when you decree a thing, it shall be established. You can only decree when you are speaking the words from a king. Okay? A lot of times y'all be decreeing over there, and you be decreeing from just the mouth of a regular man. Right? And you know Jesus already said that with man, it is what? Impossible. But with God, all things are possible. So when you speak out of your mouth to say you're going to decree a thing, make sure you are decreeing according to what the king has spoken, because man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that has proceeded out of the mouth of who? The King of God. Okay? So I guess this is two golden nuggets. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And decree a thing, okay? Decree it from the king's mouth. But God said, turn that weapon back towards the adversary. Because God said, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. But if it's formed against the enemy, it shall. Oh, that's good news to me.